Hi, I'm Christine Herman of Herman's Quality Meat Shop in Newark, Delaware. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Tonight, in this video, we are going to be talking about pork belly. Are you ready? Pork belly. Have you heard of it? I'll bet you have. Most people know it as something that's used to make bacon, and it's smoked. It's cured and it's smoked. In our store, I don't make bacon with it. I make something else with it. I make pork tips, which are amazing. And we're just going to talk about the pork belly in general, and I'm going to show you how I prepare it. And so the pork belly itself is actually the underside of the pig, and I will show you. As you can see, this is actually a very fatty and also very meaty, as you can see here, meaty portion of the pig. And here you have the skin. And it has little nipples and it has some hair. But that's natural, right? It's right from the pig. Pork belly is very popular in Asian, European, Filipino cuisines, and it's actually gaining a lot of popularity here in the United States. And because our country is what I call a melting pot, if you will, of many wonderful cultures and many wonderful recipes and restaurants, we are learning about some of these other cuisines. And one of the things I like to do with the pork belly is just trim off a little bit of the extra fat. And I'm going to do that as we chat. Oftentimes, or the recipes that I'm familiar with have two main ingredients when they cook pork belly. One is some sort of sugar, whether it's brown sugar, whether it's honey, white sugar, something to sweeten it, because pork in general is what I consider very sweet meat, and so is the fat, very sweet, which we're going to talk about also quickly. But the other thing is, the other main ingredient rather, is also something a little more acidic, maybe like a soy sauce of some sort, and also some spice. So some hot seasonings that go nicely with it. Smoked paprika is another one. I'm just kind of playing and doing a little bit of trimming. But there's also here at the up towards the tip, I'm going to call it the tip, is a gland and a piece of fat that I want to remove. And there's that gland I've talked to you about in many other pieces of meat, and I did not get it all, so I want to make sure that I remove that gland, because as I've said before, it will taint the flavor, and boy, we don't want to do that. I'm going to flip this over, scratch my eye, and here we go. So the pork belly is a slow cook piece of meat. It is brined or marinated or rubbed. There's a couple different ways that it's prepared ahead of time, and then it's slow cooked. It can be grilled, it can be roasted in the oven, it can be baked, it can be pan fried too. And I am just kind of gingerly taking the skin off, and a lot of people use the skin, get it off in one piece. They use the skin for other recipes, and they wrap it, other pieces of meat around it. And actually, what I should do is also explain to you that there are recipes that use the pork belly, and what they do is they actually score, and I'll show you, take the knife, they score into the skin, sort of like that. My particular recipe, I'm not, but they score into the skin as such, and then they go crosswise. And we can do this for you, not a problem, anytime. Similarly like this, and then they season into those scores with oftentimes like coarse salt, sea salt, and that seeps into the meat. And then when you braise it or cook it in a slow roasting pan, then the juices from the broth that you're using will also seep into the meat. So I just wanted to share that with you as another option for the skin and the pork belly itself. And again, we have customers that will just buy the skin to wrap meat with to give it that flavor and to give it that crisp flavor as well. And the pork belly is also cooked with the skin on. I have many customers that will keep the skin on, and when you cook it, it just becomes very, very crisp and delicious. However, for my particular recipe today, I'm going to be taking the skin off. And it's going to take me a couple minutes to kind of come through. This particular piece is about 14 pounds. We sell pork belly anywhere from the whole piece to a pound, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever your preference is. We're happy to cut it. We do have some customers also that like us to actually slice it like bacon, and then they use it in their recipes accordingly. That's a little challenging just because it's got some ripples in it, but it'll just take me a couple minutes to take the skin off. And what I'm going to do is season it with my favorite rub and let it marinate overnight. And then I'm going to put it in my smoker as a whole piece. And then after it cooks and crisps up nice, cooks to temperature, that 165 we've talked about before for pork, then I'm going to cut this up into pieces and put it in another sauce and just slow cook it again in my smoker. And it makes the most amazing pork tips ever. That's my recipe. There are a lot of other recipes that you can make, and I'll leave you to that fun. But I know many people use pork belly in salads, tacos, carnitas, topping it on a pizza. And my favorite idea, which I never thought about doing before, is coating it in chocolate. Why not? They say chocolate goes pretty much with anything, or pork goes pretty much with anything. So why not chocolate too? Anyway, I want to tell you a minute about the fat in pork. This is going to sound funny, but I learned that pork fat actually has a nutritional value to it, more so than beef or lamb. It's high in vitamin B and also certain minerals, which I thought was kind of an interesting thought. I happen to like a little extra fat in my meat. I'm particularly fond of, and why not? And in particular, when you make the pork belly, some of that fat will actually melt away. You don't want all of it to cook away, but you do want some of it too. And you can even trim more fat than not if you prefer to, depending upon your recipe and what you're doing. And I'm actually almost done. We're just about there. Doesn't take long. We have several customers that will come in and order a piece of pork loin, and they will wrap it in pork belly and make a porchetta with it. That's actually a very good idea. Here's where I did the scoring, so it's going to be a little extra challenging to get it all off in one piece, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. And that's another whole recipe that you can also make, is the porchetta. And that, again, this crispy skin on the outside, amazing. All right, we are just about at the tip again. And I will save the skin because, as I said, somebody will want it to wrap their meat around. So there's the skin. And believe it or not, we sell this pork skin to nurses and tattoo artists because the pork skin is the most similar to human skin. So tattoo artists use it to practice their tattoos, and nurses use it to learn how to suture. So I thought that was something interesting too I wanted to share with you. So we are pretty much ready to go here. I'm just going to trim a little more of this fat off just because I don't care for the heavy fat for my recipe in particular. But as I said, I've already taken the gland out, and that's really important. A nice heavy piece of, a little bit of heavy fat in here that I prefer to take out. And again, this is just me. A lot of your recipes will call to leave that on there. We are just about done and ready to go. All of this looks beautiful. Yep, that's pretty much right where I want it to be. Okay, let's flip it over so you can see how nice and meaty that is all the way through and all the way around. There you go. And that is your skinless pork belly right there. That's beautiful, just like that. Okay, what I am going to do, let's put a glove on. And I am going to sprinkle this with my favorite rub. Just kind of rub that in a little bit here and there. It doesn't have to completely coat it. It can if you'd like. Make sure that membrane is off. Did that earlier. Oh, this rub smells so good. And a lot of folks use their own rub. They make their own combination of seasonings and spices, or they buy a pre-made one. Either way, it's fine. I like to season up both sides. I may need a little bit more here, but I think I've got just what I need. I might want to go back and add a little more when I'm done, but we're good. There you go. Voila. There it is. And this is going to marinate overnight, and it's going to go into my smoker. Okay. Stay tuned. We'll be back for more. We have been talking about pork belly and how delicious and delicate the pork belly is, and how amazing the actual fat itself can be, and how flavorful, and the different recipes that we can use. However, what we also talked about in addition was seasoning up this pork belly and preparing it to make pork tips. And that's what we have here. But we have some pictures that we're going to show you also of the step-by-step procedure, because this is a lengthy process that we go through. We marinate the whole pork belly for a couple days, then we smoke it, then we cool it, we cut it up into cubes, and then we put it back in the smoker with our special sauce, and then we let it just turn into these delicious pork cubes. Now, I'm not going to lie, they may not look that appetizing. However, they are quite the opposite. They're tender and they're delicious, and I'm going to show you some of the pieces in general, and some of the pieces look solid like that, and some of the pieces are actually almost, if you can see that, it's almost like a layer of pork meat with a little bit of fat, more pork and a little more fat, almost like a layer cake, believe it or not. So that is what makes them absolutely delectable and delicious. And I am going to show you very simply, like there's a nice big chunk right there, what we do when we're going to serve them. And these are also delicious, and I say also because very similar to our brisket tips, you can eat these anywhere from cold to hot. And when you heat them, the fat, and you can see some of the kernels of fat, the yellow is the fat that comes out, and that just sort of melts away. And here's another nice looking piece there. You can see the sections, and the fat just sort of melts away, and it is just delicious as an appetizer, perfect for a sporting event, a tailgate party maybe, sitting around having wine and cheese with friends and family, and enjoying these delicious pieces of pork. They don't, I'm not going to lie, I think I said that already, but they may not look quite as delicious as if you had a slice of roast beef. But that's okay, because it's what they are. They're smoked pork tips, and they're supposed to look a little unusual. And let me tell you, they are amazing. And a couple toothpicks, and voila, you have a snack, an appetizer, a nice chunk of pork. It's soft, a little bit of crunch on the outside, and delicious flavor on the inside. Give them a try. I have many customers that ask me the proper way to defrost or thaw their meats. And it is not as easy as it may seem, although it is very simple. And you'd be surprised how many customers I have that will actually call me and say, I've had this meat in the refrigerator or sitting out on the counter for so long, is it still good? And sometimes there's a fine line. There's an answer and there isn't an answer. So I want to talk to you for a couple of minutes. My kitchen tip today is about some proper ways or better ways to thaw or defrost meats. And the best way is to defrost it in your refrigerator. Plan ahead. Take it out of the freezer Sunday, whatever it is. If it's a big piece of meat, it may take 3 or 4 days to defrost, like a roast beef. If it's a couple pieces of chicken, it may just take overnight. So think about your meals for the week. I'm not suggesting, meal planning and so on and menus. I'm just suggesting that you think about how you want to prepare your meals for the week and what works best. If that doesn't work, in other words, you've come home from work and you're like, oh, I got to have something for dinner. You've got a couple of other options. The one option, if you have a microwave, is you can defrost your meat in the microwave. If you do that, keep in mind that you need to cook it right away. So come home, put it in the microwave, defrost it, cook it. Not a problem. There's no health concern with that at all. Another method is if you have a few more hours, you can take those chicken breasts or piece of meat and put them in either a container or a Ziploc bag, something like that, where you can set it into a bowl and let cold water constantly run on it. And you're then maybe thinking to yourself, that sounds odd or counterproductive, but the cold water will actually circulate around the meat and it will help it to defrost quickly. And you can kind of flip the meat from one side to the other if you'd like. If you have enough time, maybe a whole chicken, for example, you can put that in the cold water and just let it sit for a couple of hours. I'm not personally a big fan of just letting water run because I don't like to waste a natural resource. However, it is an option. So just kind of keep, again, that in mind. Another idea, and you've probably done this more than once, is defrosting as part of their cooking process. In other words, you want hamburgers for dinner. Well, they're frozen. You can take them out of the freezer and you can put them in the frying pan, or you can put them on the grill or under the broiler, and they can cook while they defrost. Yes, it's going to take a little bit longer, but that's another option for defrosting. The other option is, again, depending upon what you're making. If you're making soup, you can take your frozen chicken, for example, and just put it in the pot of boiling water and just let it defrost while it's cooking. That's another option. Another option that a lot of people use, and I know I do it myself, is I will take my piece of meat and I will put it out on my counter and I will let it sit on the counter. However, what you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure you keep an eye on the temperature. And I didn't talk about the temperature because you know your refrigerator is at 38 to 41 degrees, and that's fine. But your room temperature could be 70 degrees. You don't want your meat to get to be room temperature. You want it to still be somewhat chilled as it's defrosting. In other words, as it's defrosting, keep an eye on it. If you leave the house and you come back a couple hours later, check on it. If it's starting to get room temperature, you want to cook it right away. You want to refrigerate it. You want to season it, marinate it, and make sure you cook it right away. You don't want it to get warm or room temperature. And something else that I tell my customers all the time is that you can smell it, and you can also check the temperature, the texture, or not temperature, the texture of the meat. But again, depending upon what it is, how long it's been sitting in your refrigerator, and you can immediately know by the smell. If it's chicken or beef or pork, you can immediately know by the smell or the discoloration if something isn't right. And it's your best bet is, if you're not sure, throw it away. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for you to get sick. But you can safely defrost meat in the manners that I have mentioned. So keep those in mind. And it's always a good idea to have another nose test, somebody else in the family, have them check it or smell the meat or feel the texture. If it feels slimy in any way, or if the meat's turning brown or black, don't bother. It's not worth it. I always say your first loss is your best loss, because it's just not worth you taking a chance on you or somebody else getting sick. So I hope those tips were helpful. Very important. And certainly feel free, if you have any questions or concerns, to make a phone call. You can always call me here at the store, 302-731-5344. If you ever have a question and you want us to just kind of talk through what you've defrosted or how long something's been defrosted and you're not sure. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you will subscribe to our channel and like our page, and we hope that you will join our Herman's family. Thank you. God bless you. Our smoked pork tips are amazing. I suggest that sometime you stop by, give them a try. They are sold in 1 pound and half-pound containers. We keep them fresh for a couple days, and then we freeze them right away. They freeze very well, and just take them out and let them cook up quickly, either wrapped up in foil or on a dish, in the broiler or in the oven, and enjoy. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Please remember to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we hope to have you join our Herman's family. Thank you. Christine Herman.